Ahead on NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman.
On this week's edition of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman, effective parasite control strategies for cattle producers. Plus, a new program that's helping cattlemen across the country increase feed efficiency in their herds.
And now, NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman with host Kevin Oxner.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman. I'm Kevin Oxner. Thanks for joining us. Topping this week's cattle industry news, the worst drought in 60 years continues to plague the United States. Over 70% of cattle-producing regions are experiencing drought conditions, and weather experts are even making some comparisons to the Dust Bowl years. Although parts of the U.S. have seen some rain recently, it's simply not enough to wipe out the current drought conditions. While any amount of precipitation is welcomed, many farmers and ranchers say the damage has already been done to their summer crops. Colorado State climatologist and senior research associate Nolan Doskin tells us how severe this drought is compared to other droughts we've seen in the past.
Last year it was Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico. Then over the course of the fall and winter, it let go its grip a little bit on those areas. Then western drought, more of a Kansas, Colorado, Utah started to develop as we went into the spring. And then during the summer, it's just become a nationwide phenomena with drought all the way from portions of the East Coast all the way to California, spreading northward to the Dakotas, Montana, Idaho. What's particularly ugly about this year's drought has been the heat that's accompanied it. Now, you go back to 1954, 1956, yeah, there was heat accompanying the drought then as well in the western plains, Texas, etc., Colorado. If you look at the drought of 1988 in the Midwest, yeah, it had heat with it too. 1934, yes. But this summer has been even hotter than some of those summers for parts of the country. So it's right in there in the ugly drought category. I mean, it's an industry that's always tried to have optimism, and you know that the climate is variable. I guess that's the optimism right now, is usually things go up and down, just like cattle prices do, and hopefully the precipitation will be on the way up too.
There's no doubt that cattlemen across the country will be feeling the effects of this drought for quite some time. But luckily, assistance is available for folks who are being affected. Rachel Murph with the United States Department of Agriculture's Natural Resource Conservation Service is here to tell us about some of the resources available to cattlemen. Rachel, thanks for coming to the show.
Thank you.
Well, we've certainly experienced the most widespread drought in a number of years. Specifically, what kind of impact has this had on the natural resources for farmers and ranchers?
Well, for ranchers, I mean, the biggest thing that it's impacting, of course, is the water quantity as well as the water quality. Dirt tanks to ponds are drying up. Wells may be going dry or not producing as much. The other biggest thing, of course, is the amount of forage available for their livestock. Not only quantity of forage, but as well as quality of forage. So.
Absolutely. And specifically from NRCS's perspective, what's some of the advice and the counsel that you're giving as you're going out to meet with some of these farmers and ranchers? Yeah,
it's really hard since we're now in the drought. I mean,
right.
Of course, the best thing to do is sort of prepare for the drought prior to the drought coming. But one of the things that we're trying to do right now is help them assess their conditions that they're in right now. Mm-hmm. So that has to do with sort of identifying what plants are growing out there, how much is growing, what possible things may be being affected by the drought, and then helping them to make decisions that can help them figure out whether they need to, destock or move cattle or feed cattle, or how they need to do.
Or all of the above. Huh?
Right. And then what we'll do is hopefully get talking about grazing strategies that can then take them into the recovery part of drought. Mm-hmm. And then through the recovery time, then hopefully we will have learned lessons in this drought and then be able to do contingency planning for the next drought, since drought is somewhat normal.
the next drought. I hope that doesn't happen
Yeah, I
soon.
hope not to this extreme, but drought is a natural part of our system. So.
You know, I've heard about both some technical and financial resources that are available through NRCS.
Yes.
Can you tell some of our viewers how they get access to that?
Yeah, your best bet is to go to your local field office,
Okay.
and then there's lots of professionals at the field office, including rangeland management specialists and soil conservationists that can come out and assist you. They can offer you all sorts of conservation planning tools, things to do now, to do later in your operation in terms of grazing strategies, as well as different conservation practices to promote the sustainability of your operation. We do have financial programs as well, such as the Environmental Quality Incentives Program and the Wildlife Habitat Incentives Program. There's also some other drought programs that are rolling out, but they're kind of, I would go to your local field office to get the most up-to-date information about how those programs are working and what their deadlines are and what's available. So.
Well, this drought has certainly shown us once again how valuable our natural resources are, and we appreciate all that you do to help us preserve and protect those.
Well, thank you. We appreciate the ranchers. They take care of it as well. So.
You bet. For more information on the resources available through the NRCS, just log on to our website at cattlemantocattleman.org. Whether it's a drought, a government mandate, or anything in between, the National Cattlemen's Beef Association is committed to helping farmers and ranchers get what they need to be successful. We had a chance to ask a few cattlemen why they believe it's so important to be an NCBA member.
You know, the National Cattlemen's Beef Association is important to our operation. It does a wonderful job in representing us on the national level, being a voice for livestock producers. I'm very proud that my voice as a grassroots livestock producer can be carried all the way through Washington with the help of the volunteer leaders and the staff.
This is our national voice. We're well represented in D.C. We know that's where the action happens, and we get feedback and information from all of our colleagues around the rest of the country.
Gosh, I've been an NCBA member since I got out of college, which was in 1979. I just feel like a trade organization like that represents us well, does things that we can't do as an individual.
I'm an NCBA member primarily because of the work that NCBA does for us on the political level and issues level. There are so many things that come up as far as regulations and legislation, that sort of thing, that an individual producer cannot have any impact on the people that control those things. But as a group, when cattlemen come together in an organization such as NCBA, then they have more of a voice.
To become a member of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, give us a call at 1-866-USA-BEEF or email us at c2c@beef.org. If you join right now, you'll receive a free 100 milliliter bottle of Dectomax injectable from Pfizer Animal Health. And if you join NCBA as well as your state association, you'll receive a 200 milliliter bottle of Dectomax injectable. But you must join both at the same time in order to get in on this free offer. Ahead on NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman.
Producers need to make sure whatever dewormer they're using is effective.
Why controlling internal parasites can mean a more profitable herd. Plus, new technology that's helping cattlemen increase feed efficiency in their herds. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
You're watching NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman on RFD TV.
You're not responsible for the weather, just the cattle. And Rangeland works as hard as you do to deliver performance, production, and profitability. Cattle need consistent nutrition. They'll get it year-round with Rangeland products from Land O'Lakes. Deliver what they need free choice in weather-resistant loose minerals and mineral and protein tubs. Get the most out of your forage. See your Land O'Lakes Co-op for products that will stand up to whatever Mother Nature throws at us. Weather's coming in. Rangeland. Consider it done.
I am an NCBA member.
I am an NCBA member because NCBA provides me with the eyes and the ears, and most importantly, a voice on issues that affect me and my operation every day across the country.
I am an NCBA member.
I am an NCBA member because beef producers feed the world.
I am an NCBA member.
I am an NCBA member.
Join me today.
There's something wrong. His head is down. He's clearly stressed. He's worried sick about BRD. That's why there's prescription Zactran for BRD treatment and control in high-risk cattle. Get a rapid response plus 10-day treatment and control in a single dose, so you can stop worrying and get back to business. For use in cattle only, do not treat cattle within 35 days of slaughter. Because a discard time in milk has not been established, do not use in female dairy cattle 20 months of age or older, or in calves to be processed for veal. The effects of Zactran on bovine reproductive performance, pregnancy, and lactation have not been determined. Don't worry yourself sick. Talk to your veterinarian about a real alternative for BRD treatment and control. Because it's critical, it's Zactran from Mariel, a leading animal health company.
Welcome back. In 2009, the USDA National Animal Health Monitoring Survey found internal parasite resistance to a popular class of cattle dewormers in 7 different U.S. states and suspected resistance in 8 others. In March of 2012, the FDA Center for Veterinary Medicine held a public forum to address the growing concerns of internal parasite resistance to popular cattle dewormers. To learn more about internal parasite resistance, why it's important, and how producers can manage this growing problem, we caught up with our friends at MERCK Animal Health to talk about effective parasite control strategies for cattle producers.
Cattlemen know that effective internal parasite control is the cornerstone of every animal health program. Using the right product at the right time is critical for maximum production.
Parasite control is so important to cattlemen because parasites do 3 things to animals. They decrease the feed intake, decrease average daily gain, and they affect the immune system. This can amount to about $190 over the lifetime of that animal. The other thing is they affect every segment of the cattle production system, whether it's the cow-calf guy, the stocker guy, or the feedlot guy. These animals have to deal with these parasites in every part of the production cycle.
Eldon Fry is the owner of a custom preconditioning operation near Quitman, Arkansas. Eldon says the key to his business is getting cattle healthy and ready for their next home.
We've been preconditioning cattle since 1999. Before that, we were a cow-calf operation for about 15 years. Prior to that, spring of 99, we converted over, sold the cows, and became preconditioning lot. We get in anywhere from 7,000 to 10,000 a year. We keep cattle 45 to 60 days normally. Give all of our vaccinations, dehorning, castrate bulls, ID. Get the cattle healthy and ready to go west, either to grass or to the feedlot directly, depending on the size of cattle we get in.
Fry says being in the cattle business is a way of life that suits him.
I'm in the cattle business because it's a way of life that I really enjoy. It's something I've been doing for 30 years. And then from the dairy business to be in the beginning to the stocker, to a beef cow operation. We had registered cows. Our son got into showing cattle. It's a perfect place to raise your kids. It's just a way of life that I really love. I like to take care of the animals. We really enjoy doing it.
For Eldon Fry, controlling internal parasites is an important factor in the entire animal health process.
Internal parasite control is important because these cattle are stressed. When we get cattle in on initial working, we're using Safeguard wormer along with our vaccines. We use a 5-way IBR BVD. We use a pastorilla with black-legged cattle, and like I said, we use Safeguard. So we're going to vaccinate them with a 5-way. You sure want it to work. You're spending the money on the vaccine and you want that calf to do it. So worming him on the first day and cleaning him out with Safeguard seems to me like works faster and gets that calf to where his immune system can be able to work and help that calf.
Dr. Newcomb describes the science that links internal parasite control with a properly working immune system.
What we know is that when you deworm an animal, then you're getting rid of the worms, and what we've seen is that the excretions and secretions of the worm are what's causing an altered immune response. So an animal that's heavily parasitized may not be able to respond properly to viral vaccine or viral disease. But when you kill that worm, then in about a 14-day period, the body is able to reset itself and respond properly with a proper immune response to your viral vaccine.
Eldon Fry definitely sees the effect.
I'll definitely see a difference after worming. And worming cattle and getting them parasite-free sure helps the vaccines work a lot better, I think. You get your immune system up.
Optimal internal parasite control has become more difficult as resistance to a popular class of cattle dewormer available in pour-on and injectable forms has been documented and identified in many states.
Deworming protocols have changed in recent years because of resistance, okay? When we think about what's gone on, say, over the last 40 years in the cattle business with dewormers, in the 1970s, it was the brown stomach worm, okay? Ostratasia was the biggest, the baddest worm on the block. But when the avermectins or the ivermectin compounds came onto the scene, that parasite was basically handled. But over the years, what we've seen, especially with the advent of the pour-on dewormers and then the generic dewormers, we've seen those products kind of used and abused somewhat. And that's led us down the path of resistance because these products are being used at times of year when they don't need to be used, and they're used for fly control when they're actually dewormers. So what's gone on through the years, we've had this selection process, especially in the South, for a worm called Coperia.
We'll have more about effective parasite control strategies for cattle producers when we return. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
They're out there, lurking on your pasture, just waiting to infect your cattle as they graze. Cattle worms cost you money, but a Safeguard strategic deworming program allows you to deworm your cattle and lower worm burdens on your pasture, resulting in improved pregnancy rates and heavier calf weights. Plus, there's a Safeguard form for every operation. So start killing parasites where they lurk. Talk to your animal health provider today about a Safeguard strategic dewormer program. Safeguard. Think strategically. Act decisively.
John Deere K-Series loaders. You asked for a machine beefy enough to handle your harsh work environment, and John Deere delivered. Axle coolers, reversing fans, and a dual hydraulic differential lock keep your machine productive for years to come. And with dozens of options, this loader is king of the cattle business. Your dealer can spec a K-Series loader that's just right for you. See your dealer today.
You know, I didn't think I could afford to vaccinate for scours. Then my vet told me about Guardian vaccine. Guardian offers the most complete coverage of anti-scours vaccine. And now Guardian can protect my calves against E. coli up to 6 months prior to calving.
It pays to vaccinate with Guardian Scours vaccine.
Thanks to Guardian, I have healthier calves and healthier profits.
There's only one place to find cattle industry updates, market highlights, and stories by cattlemen for cattlemen.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman.
Learn about every segment of the industry, from cow-calf producers to feeders, from beef safety to food service and retail. Join host Kevin Oxner for NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman, Tuesday nights at 8:30 Eastern on RFD TV.
Dr. Harold Newcomb of MERCK Animal Health explains how producers can deworm their pasture with strategically timed pasture cattle treatments.
What you're trying to accomplish with a strategic deworming program is to actually deworm the pasture. And what you want to do is reduce the parasite burden on the pasture. And if you're in the deep south and you're a cow-calf producer, you can do this by deworming the cattle 6 to 8 weeks after grass puts out, and then do it again with one of the non-handling forms about 6 to 8 weeks later. If you're a stocker guy, it's day 0, 28, and 56. The day 0, you use the combination. 28 and 56 days, you use one of the non-handling forms. The nice thing about Safeguard is we have a form that will work in just about any producer's operation. The benefits from doing this, if you're a cow-calf guy, come in the form of increased conception rates, greater weaning weights. If you're a stocker guy, it's actually about a 30 to 40 pound advantage over a grazing season.
If you have questions about strategic timing for pasture deworming with Safeguard, contact your local veterinarian, animal health provider, or your local MERCK Animal Health representative.
Welcome back. Let's return to reporter Brian Baxter, who's learning more about strategic deworming practices for cattle producers.
Dr. Newcomb says Coperia resistance to avermectin class dewormers was first documented by the U.S. Department of Agriculture on an operation in Wisconsin with cattle purchased from the southeastern U.S.
One of the first cases of parasite resistance recognized in the United States was up in Wisconsin, which would seem kind of odd. But what the guy in Wisconsin was a stocker guy. And what he did was he bought cattle in the south. They were overwintered in the south, and then they were moved up north to Wisconsin. But while they were in the south, basically they were dewormed pretty regularly, about like every 60 to 90 days with some form of pour-on dewormer. So when those cattle traveled up north, they carried every parasite that was in them or left over from those dewormings up to Wisconsin. And what the guy in Wisconsin had actually found was that his production level was going down. And then he contacted USDA. They got involved, they did fecal samples, they harvested some cattle, looked at the worms, and they found the predominant worm in those cattle was Coperia.
Newcomb says new research sponsored by MERCK Animal Health confirms that these avermectin-resistant Coperia can have a significant impact on cattle performance.
Back in the dark ages when I was in school, Coperia was thought not to be a problem at all, but we've done some recent research where we've seen that particular parasite, especially like operation like that Eldon has, it can cost you up to a quarter of a pound a day in gain and up to 1.5 pounds a day in dry matter intake.
Newcomb states research shows that once resistance develops to a class of dewormer, parasite resistance occurs with every product and form of that class of dewormer.
Once the worm gets resistant to one of those classes of dewormers, it's going to be resistance to everything in there. And, you know, recently there's been a lot of hype that it was generic versus name brand. That it really doesn't matter. That once they gain resistance, they've got resistance to everything in that particular class of dewormer, whether it's brand X or brand Y, whether it's generic or trade name, they're going to see the same thing. The parasites will be resistant.
Dr. Newcomb says as important as an effective deworming is to the performance of cattle, cattlemen need to know their dewormer is effective.
Well, producers need to make sure whatever dewormer they're using is effective. And what they can do is take fecal samples on the day that they deworm, and then again 14 days later. What you want to see is about a 90% reduction in that egg count. If you don't get a 90% reduction in egg count or greater, then you've not had a successful deworming. And you need to go back and ask yourself a few questions. Number one, was the product administered correctly? Was it administered at the correct dose? If those two can be answered yes, then you need to start thinking about you might have a resistance problem and contact your veterinarian or parasitologist for help.
To prevent resistant parasites from multiplying and spreading to an operation, Dr. Newcomb says producers can use different classes of dewormers concurrently to minimize and manage parasite resistance.
Well, producers need to do to manage the parasite burden is basically clean the cattle out. Like if you're a stocker operator, you want to make sure that you kill all the worms in that animal as it comes into your operation, so you're not carrying resistant worms or distant population of worms onto your property. The best way to do that is to use like Safeguard, because Safeguard kills within 24 hours. The other thing you want to do too is to add that in combination with one of the macrolactones, one of the avermectin type compounds, because when you do that, you're getting the best of both worlds and you're protecting each compound from resistance developing.
Dr. Newcomb says the strategy of concurrent deworming with two different classes of compounds was developed, tested, and proven in Australia.
The modeling to show that the combinations work, that work actually started in Australia. What their model showed was that by putting the products in combination and using them at the appropriate time, you could actually extend the life of these products for several years. The other thing that they found, and the model did predict this, is that the amount of resistance or the number of resistant worms would go down by using the combination products. And over several years, that seems to have been proven out that the model was correct.
Newcomb says the concurrent deworming strategy has also proven to be a worthwhile investment in trials in the U.S. feedlot industry.
On the 4 feedlot trials that we've done and are published, what we found was that there was about a 10-to-1 return on your investment by using the combination of a macrocyclactone or ivermectin with Safeguard, okay? And that was 4 or 5 years ago when cattle prices were much less than what they are today.
Newcomb says cattlemen can see the benefits when they use this deworming strategy in their operations.
Well, 3 things to remember about strategic deworming is, number 1, it reduces parasite burden on the pasture. Number 2, it will improve the health of the cattle. But number 3, and probably most importantly, it will put more money in your pocket.
Eldon Fry agrees.
The one thing I want cattlemen to know about using a deworming product is that they will see results. They'll see weight gain, they'll see the cattle perform better, the product will pay for itself.
Reporting from Quitman, Arkansas, I'm Brian Baxter for NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman.
With cattle values near record levels, a successful deworming program is more critical to cattlemen now than ever before. MERCK Animal Health encourages you to work with your local veterinarian, parasitologist, or animal health provider to develop an effective deworming strategy. If you'd like to learn more about this information, visit www.safeguardcattle.com. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Preventing cattle pink eye is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Vaccinate your animals with Piligard Pink Eye Tri-View to provide pink eye fighting antibodies in the tears that bathe the eye. Broad spectrum protection that cross-reacts with 103 different strains of pink eye causing bacteria. 2. Stop the flies that spread pink eye bacteria throughout the herd. Apply double barrel VP ear tags and Ultra Boss Poron for up to 5 months of face fly and horn fly control. 3. Manage the environment to reduce damage to the animal's eye from seed heads, pollen, and UV light, irritants that increase the risk of pink eye infection. With the right tools, preventing pink eye is as easy as 1, 2, 3.
Hi there, I'm Joey.
And I'm Rory, and welcome to our farm outside Nashville, Tennessee. When we go to work, whether it's on tour or here at home, we wear the West.
That's right. Whether it's that perfect snap shirt or that perfect pair of boots. When you wear Roper, you wear the West.
Learn more about us, Joey and Rory, and about Roper Western Wear at eroper.com.
Telling the truth and being real and feeding my family a home-cooked meal. That's important to me. That's important to me. And planting the garden and watching it grow.
Welcome back. Each year, NCBA recognizes 7 farms and ranches that make environmental stewardship a top priority. 77 Ranch in Blooming Grove, Texas, comes from humble beginnings, but has grown into a large operation that takes pride in everything from their cattle to their grass. Cattleman to Cattleman reporter Scott Hoke has more.
In the cool of a Texas morning, Gary Price and his son Gary Lee are moving cattle. The 77 Ranch got its start 36 years ago when Gary and Sue Price acquired their first piece of land from a family friend.
The ranch actually has been put together through the years. We bought the first piece of property back in 1976 from a good old friend of mine named Lee Lowe. He was an old cowboy friend of mine I met first when I was 8 years old, and bought the first piece of property from him when he was beginning to get out of ranching.
The 77 Ranch is definitely a family operation. My husband and I and our son Gary Lee. I'm fortunate to be married to a husband that loves his job. Every day he gets up and he can't wait to get out and try to make things better.
The 77 Ranch has grown to nearly 2,500 acres today. Because Gary and Sue acquired it piece by piece, their land is in various stages of restoration.
Some of these areas that we know are cropped old fields, we've gone back in and we've reseeded those with native grass mixes and forbs. And some areas, all we've had to do is, through our rotational grazing system, be able to rest those a little bit, and those native grasses, the seed source was there, and then they've really responded well.
I think of Gary as a restoration specialist. We've been able to buy several different farms that joined us, and he could see the possibility that the land had.
Range management, my dad, I think that's, he just kind of has a knack for it. He's a natural at it. One thing he always told me, and I always go back to it, and when I'm out there, you take care of your grass and it'll take care of you.
Taking care of the grass paid off big in 2011 when the Price family faced extreme drought.
There was really nothing green at all throughout the summer, but we were able to get along and not cull anything. And again, we're able to wean all of our calves on schedule and precondition those and then sell them and improve in market, so that helped. But it just showed us the value of range health.
I think the main reason they came through that drought strongly was because they left a lot of grass here when things were good, and they didn't try to take it all. They didn't try to mine all the nutrients out of the country.
Gary and Sue have done a great job to weather through the 2011 drought. They were able to get through the drought without selling any livestock, been able to maintain a pasture rotation, and here a year later we're seeing a lot of good responses from our good native grasses.
One key to weathering the drought was the big lakes and other water resources Gary and Sue have developed over the years. Those lakes have also added value by providing fishing and duck hunting income, as well as wildlife habitat.
What stands out to me is Gary and Sue's knowledge of the land, of the vegetation, of the wildlife, and how they make their choices towards managing the land to benefit the wildlife species, and also produces a pretty profitable cattle operation at the same time.
Another key to improving the forage resources on 77 Ranch is brush control.
We like individual plant treatment because we're not disturbing the ground. We've got a lot of good native grass base here that we don't want to go in with a dozer and tear that up. So if we can do individual plant treatment, then we've kept that grass intact, and it's worked well for us. You know, Remedy and Diesel are a great product together that can absolutely do a tremendous job on mesquite, and mesquite would be our #1 brush problem.
The list of conservation projects on 77 Ranch is long. Gary worked with Ducks Unlimited to install a seasonal wetland. Land that once included a washed-out gully now produces a crop and turns into a valuable wetland each fall. And Gary and Sue share the story of ranching with visitors and school groups.
I have a belief that we need to share stewardship with younger people, and that's why it's so important to us to open our gates.
And we bring out 3rd and 4th graders and bring them out on the land from these urban areas, whether it be Dallas or even the Blooming Grove kids locally. And they come out, and we've tried to connect them to the land through the water that they drink, and let them know that their water comes across some ranch somewhere.
The long-term future of 77 Ranch looks bright. Gary Lee is currently working on a ranch in West Texas, but the plan is for him to return home and continue the legacy of stewardship his parents have begun.
It's great that our son loves ranching as much as we do, and when he takes over someday, we'll be leaving it in very good hands.
We like to look at it as we're not trying to conquer this place and conquer this land, but to learn to get along with it, see what it's trying to tell us, and to pass it along certainly better than we found it.
To see the profiles of other regional winners of the ESAP Award, just visit our website at cattlemantocattleman.org. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
It's time to wrap up your savings on John Deere hay tools. With big bonus cash or special financing on our high-quality lineup of mower conditioners, balers, and select hay tools. Or if you have a utility tractor in mind, take advantage of great deals available now on rugged 5 Series and 6 Series tractors. Roll on in and wrap up your savings. Like summer, these deals won't last, so hurry in today.
It's the official monthly publication of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. The National Cattleman is produced exclusively for NCBA members and includes coverage of the news and events affecting our industry. From Capitol Hill to the far side of cattle country, the National Cattleman provides information NCBA members need. Every issue includes market analysis, feature stories, and practical management tips. Start receiving your copy of The National Cattleman. Call 866-USA-BEEF or go online to beefusa.org and join today.
Welcome back. Cattle producers are continuously looking for ways to improve their bottom line. And given today's commodity prices, feed efficiency plays a big role in the profitability of individual animals. But tracking that is no easy task. Fortunately, a USDA-funded program called the National Program for the Genetic Improvement of Feed Efficiency in Beef Cattle is in the process of collecting valuable data which can help producers across the country increase feed efficiency in their own herds. Cattleman to Cattleman reporter Matt Fleck has more.
When you think about feed with respect to cattle production, it's the primary capital input regardless of what sector of the industry you're looking at, whether it's cow-calf or in the feedlot. And so it's an important component that we need to get right.
During a time when feed costs are at record high prices, producers are paying close attention to feed efficiency and how it affects their bottom line.
Feed costs is a huge obstacle when it comes to the cow-calf sector or the feeding sector all the way through the chain. And so anything that we can do to basically produce more pounds of beef with less feed is going to make us all more profitable and also make it more available to consumers, that hopefully we can continue to produce that high quality protein at a lower cost.
I think that everybody looks at the performance and the pound of gain that you got out of those cattle, but you also have to look at what it costs you to put it there.
Figuring out the science behind producing more beef with less feed is extremely challenging, especially because tracking how much an individual animal eats is nearly impossible for many cattlemen.
A calf, a beef animal, half of his weight was got on grass much of the time with his mother. So that's nearly impossible to get intake data. Then we intake data because of our operations that are in large feedlots, and to get individual feed intake not only was very difficult, but it was very expensive.
A federally funded grant through the USDA National Institute of Food and Agriculture is addressing this difficult problem and finding ways to improve feed efficiency in cattle by tracking feed intake in a controlled setting.
We've invested a lot of money in infrastructure to be able to record individual feeding events at the animal's own natural behavior, anytime, day or night. We can record it. We can record the animals that come in 10, 12 times a day and eat very heavily, to the animals that come in all day long and nibble, and try to decide if there's a feed efficiency component to that, and just really look into that kind of thing and try to help tie that back to the industry and how that we can become more efficient across the board.
We will produce about 8,000 individuals that we have individual animal feed intake data on, and we'll use those animals to come up with molecular estimates of breeding value that will be disseminated to people in the industry that they can use to essentially accomplish what they want, and that is to select for animals that are more efficient at converting feed into growth.
Understanding what makes cattle efficient at converting feed into growth is important across all sectors of the beef industry, but it's especially important for feedlot owners.
In the feedlot, feed efficiency is critical. You know, if you look at what really makes a particular pen of cattle profitable in the feedlot, it's basically based on the value of the cattle when they're sold, which relates to the carcass weight, their carcass quality, and their yield grade or retail product, and the cost of production. And feed efficiency, aside from the cost of the feed itself, is really the factor that drives that cost of production. So those two factors are used together for cattle feeders to determine what they'll pay for a pen of cattle, and then ultimately whether that pen is profitable or not.
Feed efficiency in a feedlot can vary based on management decisions. Everything from the type of ration used to the overall herd health determines if a particular group of cattle are feed efficient.
They've made some strides in different ways in improving feed efficiency, mostly through changes in energy level of the diet, new technologies that have come along like implants and certain feed additives that improve feed efficiency, grain processing, feed bunk management, cattle health. All of those things work together to determine what the feed efficiency of a particular pen of cattle are.
We'll have more tips from the experts on increasing feed efficiency in beef cattle when we return. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
I'm an NCBA member.
I'm an NCBA member because I think as an advocacy group, NCBA has done some great things for our industry, and I kind of feel compelled to give back some of what they've done for us.
I'm an NCBA member because it's an organization that stands up for the industry that I love and will allow my family to continue to be a part of this great industry.
Because this organization is looking out for cattle producers.
I'm an NCBA member because NCBA doesn't pick and choose what issues it works on. It works on every issue, every day, on behalf of all the cattlemen across the country.
They understand what makes our cow-calf business profitable.
Join me and thousands of other cattlemen across the country.
Join me today.
Join me today.
Join NCBA today and receive a new member gift while supplies last. Head to beefusa.org and enter the promo code C2C or call 866-USA-BEEF and mention C2C.
Welcome back. Let's return to reporter Matt Fleck, who's learning more about a new program that's helping cattlemen increase feed efficiency in their herds.
But when we talk about feed efficiency, we are in fact also talking about gain. When we're thinking about feed conversion and nutrition and with respect to feed efficiency, we have to take into that whole picture of both the feed resources as well as the animal's ability to convert that feed.
Cattle that do not gain won't provide the top quality end product that today's consumers have come to expect. That's why it's important to study feed efficiency on the molecular level. Genomic research is evolving into a precise tool for the entire cattle industry to rely on by providing new selection options.
We need to understand the basic biology that's driving those changes in efficiency. What we're doing here is we're doing a lot of work on looking at individual feed intake and growth of animals, and then looking at genomic scans and looking for genes that are associated with regulation of feed intake and regulation of growth, and trying to come up with those component traits, and then looking at putting those into selection indexes as opposed to just looking at these ratios or an index of feed efficiency.
We're trying to actually identify ways that we can measure the phenotype so that we can then move from the phenotype to the genotype of those animals and come up with expected progeny differences for feed efficiency that the producers can use to actually select for animals that are going to convert to feed to gain more efficiently than others.
While these selection tools can benefit all the segments of the beef industry, being able to have this technology at the feedlot level has the potential to change the way producers buy and sell calves.
The results of the work that the nutritionists on this project are doing will help us determine how we might change potential management once the genomic tools are determined to separate more efficient from less efficient cattle in the feedlot.
We've got a huge opportunity to use some of these genomic tools just in understanding how to feed cattle when we bring them into the feedlot, understanding what their genetic potential is, putting them into the right marketing systems as they come in as calves so that we don't waste a lot of money in feeding calves.
Arming producers with the tools to select for feed-efficient cattle not only makes their job a little easier, but ultimately means more money in their pockets.
If we can put them in, distribute them into different marketing streams and management strategies using these genomic tools, this is where it's going to have the advantage. We can get past buying calves on coat color and some of these other traits and start looking at what their actual genetic potential is when we get them in the yard as opposed to taking a guess at it.
Although it's just in the beginning stages, many producers believe the cattle industry is ready for this kind of selection technology.
If you think for a minute that cattlemen are less apt to adopt new technology as compared to people that raise crops, you're wrong. I have complete confidence in the free market system, and I know from my 52 years of selling bulls that new technology and new improvements that will increase profit, you don't have to worry about it. Build it and they will come.
Reporting from the U.S. Meat Animal Research Center in Clay Center, Nebraska, I'm Matt Fleck for NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
The USDA grant is only in its second year, but scientists have already gathered lots of valuable information, and it's available to producers. To learn more, visit our website at cattlemantocattleman.org or the project's website at www.beefefficiency.org. And tune in next week for part 2 of our feed efficiency story, where we'll dig deeper into the subject of genomics and genetic selection in the cattle industry. Stay with us. Baxter Black is coming up next.
These days, more cattlemen choose Draxxin to fight BRD than any other brand. Here's why.
It works. We have fewer repulls, and the ones that we do repull respond, and we have fewer chronics in the end.
To retreat anything it's a lot more expensive than using Draxxin as the first time.
And the evidence backs up what most cattlemen already know. Draxxin cuts retreats by 50%. So talk to your veterinarian and check the online calculator at Draxxin.com. You'll see why Draxxin should be your first choice to fight BRD.
Basically what it's allowed us to do with our operation is run more cattle through in a given period of time. It's just really been a good product to use.
Do not use in female dairy cattle 20 months of age or older. Do not use in calves to be processed for veal. Draxxin has a pre-slaughter withdrawal time of 18 days. Please visit Draxxin.com or call 1-888-DRAXXIN for more information.
Seasons change, but year in, year out, year round, it's Crystalix season. With specific supplements for weaning stress in fall. Protein for pre-calving in winter. Calving in spring, and minerals and fly control in summer. For low-cost per-head per-day supplements, every season is Crystalix season.
We know who made that hitch. We know who cut the steel, who milled the ball, and who welded the seams. We know who tested, measured, and checked. We even know who thought the whole thing up. We're B&W, and we know your hitch. Because we don't make them halfway around the world. We make them all right here. B&W. Trusted.
And the old man gave the orders. Boys, go at 'em from the jump. No use to try for fancy riding now. That great line from the man from Snowy River crossed my mind as I started into a wicked mesquite thicket on a steep slide of rocks after a big bony cow the color of a rusted coal barge. By then we'd been in the saddle for 6 hours. It was 95 degrees, grass grown to seed, and every plant within 50 miles that had a stamen was pollinating. We left the corrals at daylight, pushing 72 cows and calves. I noticed that the ugly brown 5-year-old cow who had deserted her first calf had a second calf that looked like a seahorse in a paper bag, did not have her new calf. Great. So we cut her back to the corral. Everything went as you might expect, with 5 cowboys trying to push a herd cross-country through the mesquite and catclaw and buckthorn and arroyos and rocky ridges. And every time we'd cross a deep arroyo or mesquite orchard, it took a full dose of hoorah and brush popping to beat them out of the cover. It was hot already, and they were looking for the shade. Well, at noon, we started them into some really rough country. Brand new to the cattle. I felt like Lewis and Clark. 2 miles later, over big tracts of creosote bush and whitethorn, I could see where the new water tank was. I had a vision of Moses looking over the Grand Canyon and saying, "Whoa, we're almost there." Well, it took an hour to drive the cows that last quarter mile, and that's when I noticed the ugly brown cow had jumped the corral fence and made the 8-mile trip with us, with no calf, of course. On the way back, we stuck the gooseneck trailer in the sand, and to top it off, back at the corrals we noticed buzzards circling and found the brown cow's calf. As I'm telling you this story, my nose is running, my knee is swollen, my shirt looks like I've been in a sword fight, I've got a gouge on my right arm, a slash across my cheek, and a memory of my wore-out horse trying to roll in the muddy tank with me still in the saddle. I guess he just didn't appreciate the glory of cowboy. This is Baxter Black from out there.
Thanks, Baxter. This week's Legacy Photos come to us from the 77 Ranch in Blooming Grove, Texas, our Region 4 winners of the Environmental Stewardship Award. Let's take a look. Send us pictures from your farm or ranch. Just visit our website at cattlemantocattleman.org. Well, that does it for this week's edition of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman. We'll see you back here next week, right here on RFD TV.